Hello, everyone. Well, first of all, thank you for this opportunity. I am indeed very pleased to participate in this annual workshop, 2020 annual workshop that is held by Serene-risc. And my name is Herath, and I'm Associate Professor at Goodman School of Business at Brock University. And today I have decided to focus on information assurance practice and looking at practice as well as education. I want to talk a little bit about the progress and gaps. So title is Information Assurance Practice, Progress and Gaps in Research and Education. Before we get started, a note that what I'm going to talk today are all my own personal opinions. They're based on my own observations or my own interactions with the practitioners or other academics in the field. And my understanding, just looking at the environment in past about 10, 12 years of my journey in information security. So just to kind of get started, we all appreciate the focus on human-centric security, and certainly the topic is near and dear to me. It's an important topic for me because my focus for my research from my doctoral studies and onwards has been on information security behaviors. We in the security realm appreciate that there are three pillars for holistic information security that we should consider. The security technologies, basically thinking about from the systems design to hardening of the systems to use a variety of technologies like firewalls and intrusion detection systems, and there is just a huge plethora of them. But technologies by themselves are not sufficient. So the other pillars, people and processes, also are very important pillars for holistic security. Processes may consist governance mechanisms, thinking about auditing or compliance processes, thinking about policies and procedures. And when we talk about people, we must appreciate all different kinds of stakeholders, not only the IT people or security personnel, but all different kinds of stakeholders that will be using the systems. There is a common saying in security that a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, and people are the weakest link. So this is very well-known saying in security. Even some of the textbooks identify that. But to quote a person I recently heard just last week, and there was a security conference that I attended, and the speaker, the practice speaker, was from a major insurance company. She was the chief information security officer of the insurance company in the United States. And one particular quote stayed in my mind. She said, "All it takes is one." For them, the emphasis is on thinking about the ethics, and emphasis is in creating the security culture in their organization. But she said that all it takes is one. She has been in industry for 20 years, and how much ever money you spend, the time you spend, and the effort that you have invested in, if there is this one person where the breach might happen, all that is wasted. All the decades of effort might be wasted. So it stayed in my mind. What has been coming in the headlines recently? Well, just to take one security threat, ransomware, as one context. As we started dealing with a pandemic in March, April, early April, as all our healthcare workers were, dealing with life and death situations, a news flashed, and it said that Interpol says hospitals targeted with an array of ransomware. And this is not something new to us. Just in last 1 year, we have seen several such events. In December, Life Labs basically had experienced similar ransom attack where 15 million records were basically exposed or kind of locked. Similar news came in January 2020, where eHealthcare was hit by ransomware attack. Goes on to April 14, where basically, US cybersecurity report also noted that our Canadian healthcare workers were targeted with a ransomware attack, and it didn't stop there. Even more recently, in October 8th, there were 3 hospitals which were identified to be attacked by ransomware. So it kind of goes on, and it's not just limited to health systems. We have seen our transit systems, so San Francisco transit system, or railway roads, and universities and cities, our city systems been broken by, or not broken by, but affected by ransomware attacks. So our health system, transportation systems, power systems, banking and financial systems, city and governmental systems, universities, when we think about all our critical infrastructure systems are exposed to these vulnerabilities. And I just took one kind of a context, ransomware, and this can be just expanded when we kind of identify different types of security threats. But when we try to get to the root bottom of these incidents, why these incidents take place, even the breaches like Home Depot or Canadian Tire or Target, which was a major kind of breach that happened. When we try to get to the root bottom of these incidents, many a times we find the cause being somebody clicked on that phishing email, right? So social engineering tactics are widely used and result in these, large scope breaches. Phishing is not something new to us. For decades, we have been studying phishing, but more recently, as we have started using different modes of communication, different platforms, different applications, we have seen variants of phishing. So spear phishing, social networking phishing, text messages based phishing, called smishing, voice phishing, and so on and so forth. And even as recently as 2018-19, spear phishing was identified as a number 1 vector. The SANS Institute director identified that 95% of attacks on enterprise networks are a result of successful spear phishing. So social engineering attacks, which basically take advantage of our human vulnerability, our trusting nature, are very effective. These psychological manipulation tactics are very effective. And the reason being the ease with which they can be carried out. With one click, you can send the email to millions of recipients. So the volume and the ease with which these attacks can be perpetrated is the reason why they can be so effective. Now, when we think about the insider attacks, insider threat is known to be the major causes in most of the breaches. When we think about insider behavior, it can be both intentional as well as unintentional. And unintentional might be something as simple as making mistakes, so naive mistakes, negligence, or ignorance, or inattention. And most often, the causes lie in inexperience, people's inexperience, or they don't have exposure to it, lack of awareness of, or perhaps they don't have sufficient training in how to use certain technologies. So improper training might be a cause. or many a times it's just incorrect assumptions that we have. So we may think that a particular activity may not be harmful, but we don't take into account all different aspects surrounding that activity. So it might be just incorrect assumptions. Now, these security threats are amplified even more in today's environment, especially as we kind of went into lockdown and most people had to work in remote environment from homes. A news flashed just in March, so early phases of our pandemic, that millions are suddenly working from home, and that's a huge security risk. So when we think about people working from home, they had to use alternate technologies for video conferencing. We started using a variety of different applications, and certainly Zoom was attacked in March, April, around that time. We started using our home computers and devices that may not necessarily have the same level of hardening as might be in our offices. We started using home networks, which may have a different level of security. We started using shared computing devices. We started using more mobile devices and so on. So your BYOD, bring your own device kind of issues even got more amplified. So as we kind of, changed or reverted to this alternate mode, these security threats amplified as our perimeter that we have to think about, security perimeter, that is really large. These are just some, screen captures from various presentations. So just an appreciation of what today's technology managers have to deal with when we think about the security perimeters. We use a variety of devices, many of them wireless devices. So with this device proliferation, the security, I guess, boundaries are expanding. And as technology managers, we have to think how different people are going to use these different devices and how they can be secured in all different types of behaviors. Certainly, social media mania, most people are engaged in social media, different platforms, and thinking about what can be exposed through those social media interactions. To top it off, the Internet of Things, all the smart devices that we are using. But are all these smart devices secured? And just in the last year or two, the threats like Mirai, that basically was taking advantage of all IoT devices, making these botnets huge kind of networks. So not all manufacturers pay attention to security in exact same manner. So all different devices or platforms that we may be using really don't have the same level of security. So there is a failure on responsibility. Everybody's trying to shove the responsibility to other partners in perhaps our supply chains or supply networks. So all these parts of the puzzle, I guess, are making these issues even more amplified. So certainly we have to pay attention to individuals, how they interact with technology and their use in wide variety or wide range of things. I know that this particular platform or this particular conference uses or emphasizes word cybersecurity, but I chose in my title, Information Assurance. And just a note on that, why I chose information assurance versus cybersecurity or information security. Most often, actually, in practice, it doesn't matter. These terms are used quite interchangeably, but in more nuanced academic sense or textbook definition kind of a context. Information assurance is a little broader term. So in addition to just thinking about unauthorized use or modification, assurance deals with more. So assurance will incorporate governance issues or corporate governance, security governance or technology governance. It will also touch upon things like regulatory compliance, audits, internal, external audits, the planning cycles, planning activities, and much more. So it is a little more broader term or broader discipline, but in practice, it is used quite interchangeably. And when we think about holistic security, holistic information security, we appreciate the pillars of this system. What are the 6 components that make systems? So hardware, software, networking components, data in all different repositories, not only your relational databases, but data lakes, data warehouses, and different data structures that relate to these different types of repositories that we may be using. So in addition to those 4 components, of course, the procedures and people. And we think about security threats as they affect to all these 6 different components that make up the system, and have to think about how we are going to protect or how we are going to manage the risk in that particular context. And there are 6 P's that are often talked about for holistic approach. Planning, which might include your contingency plans and other types of planning activities, thinking about strategic, tactical versus operation level planning activities. Second P for policies, and again, more strategic policies like EISPs to ISSPs and the system level policies. Programs like your SETA programs and physical security programs and so on. Protection relates to all different technologies we may use or risk management activities that we may engage in. People relates to thinking about all different types of people. So your security personnel, information security personnel, but also all different types of stakeholders and users in your organization or outside organization. And last P stands for project, and thinking about engaging in any of these security activities, if we can undertake them in kind of project management perspective. So manage through a manager's project so that we can be efficient and effective in that implementations. And just kind of, taking on these 2 P's, thinking about people aspects, since that is our focus today. So thinking about people aspect and advancing, security using programs, SETA programs. SETA stands for Education, Training, and Awareness. So educations are more formal in nature, training might be in an organization, awareness more informal in nature perhaps. But thinking about SETA and thinking about different people and the roles they play, if we think from the project management perspective, when we are engaging in any activity, who should we have in the project team? And again, just to think about different people and different roles, we can think about roles that stakeholders play as data users or custodians or owners, or we have to think about different communities of interest. So employees working in different functional areas, which we call general business community. So marketing department, HR department, accounting department, and so on and so forth. Versus our technology people, so information technology community, versus our security community, information security personnel. But when we think about these communities of interest, many times our goals can be conflicting with each other. So they may not be always aligned with each other. So with each other. So we have to think about different roles that people may play, different objectives or goals that they may have in those job roles. And when we think about project teams, we have to bring these different perspectives as well as different skill sets together. So we may need people with expertise in development of policies, people who are policy writers, who are more proficient in linguistics, or perhaps risk assessment specialists, or perhaps security professionals who have more technical knowledge and so on. So when we engage in development of the skills, we can think about these three different aspects of SETA programs. Now, considering the formal education in Canada, formal education, it relates to degree programs or certifications like CISSP or CISA certifications, or degrees that are offered through universities. One noteworthy thing that I would like to mention is the list by Serene-risc group. It's really a wonderful initiative that the group has engaged in. I'm not very sure whether it will really show up right away. Yeah, here is the list by Serene group. And really, not long ago, when I was developing a course here at Brock University, just Google search would show me very few programs, one in British Columbia, one in New Brunswick, so two sides of the coast of Canada, and some in between. But in last 10 years, I think there are many wonderful programs that we have seen developed. So Serene-risc list identifies 125 programs with more than 1,347 courses. Really, that is a wonderful achievement of focus on security education in Canada. And again, really a wonderful job by Serene-risc group on tabulating or compiling this list. It is really a very useful resource for our students in years to come. Having said that this particular progression has taken place is what we have noticed in headlines. And even my own experience, anecdotal evidences through interactions with others. Well, in 2012, a news came and I think, made a big kind of, blast there. It was Auditor General's report, and National Post reported that Matt Gurney's quote, "Dear enemies, please don't attack us at night or on the weekends." And that was really revealing, because we did not have sufficient resources and the personnel to have 24/7, 365 focus on security. So we had only, limited resources, and they were working probably Monday through Friday, 8-hour, jobs. So that was a really revealing kind of a headline. Please don't attack us at night or on the weekends, because we are not working, we are not available to deal with security issues at that time. Have things changed over years? Well, 2012 to 2019, as I said, there are many programs, but news keeps on telling us that we are still looking at the shortage in this area. So July 29, 2019, just last year, Globe and Mail said, well, we need to think about closing the cybersecurity talent gap. The businesses are needing more, but we don't really have that talent available on hand. Similar thing, facing troubling shortage of cybersecurity workers. And relatively more recently, how small businesses are still struggling to compete for cybersecurity talent. And these were just the I guess headlines in the news. My interactions with different partners in industry. I am on a panel, CIO panel, and I also interact with industry partners in different areas. These interactions suggest that actually it's not very easy. Some organizations have taken years to find the right people. So we still are facing the shortages in this particular area. That's formal education and formal training. But what about awareness? And time again, the security surveys have identified that it is one of the most effective mechanism that can be employed. Most managers agree that training and awareness is important. So, if you think about CSI surveys that were, in 2010, 2012, to even, more recent surveys and KPMG or Deloitte and Touche and Ernst and Young, all these different consulting firms also carry out the security surveys. And there are CSI kind of surveys, surveys like SANS Institute or your Kaspersky's surveys and so on. If you look at that, most managers agree that training and awareness can be very effective mechanism, but majority say that they don't do enough. So we do fail to foster a culture of awareness. That's basically thinking from, education perspective, that have, where we were, what we have done over past 10 years, but is that sufficient? Thinking about research in this area, again, in the information security behaviors or behavioral security, as we say, or human-centric security, there has been a lot of research in past decade or so. It has looked at variety of different lenses. It has looked at security policy compliance. It has looked at insecure behaviors in different types of contextual technology use behaviors. It has looked at theories like protection motivation or deterrence or moral disengagement or neutralization, accountability. How do we kind of impose accountability? Has looked at the ethical, nature of our behaviors or ethical values. Has looked at disgruntlement as employees kind of go through different experiences in organizations during their tenure, how those kind of can affect their compliance behaviors or negligence behaviors to even intentional harm kind of behaviors. So in last 10 or 12 years, actually, the research in this area has blossomed quite extensively. So in conclusion, while we have made strides both in terms of research in this area, in human-centric security, as well as developing educational programs in this particular area, especially in Canada, the reality is calling for more. And with ever-changing landscape of technology use, the way we are using all these variety of devices and apps and so on. So with the ever-changing landscape of technology use and the threats that are imposed in this amplified environment, we can do more, and we need to do more, I think. And that's my personal opinion, that I think there is much more needed. And I would like to end with the quote of that CISO, that all it takes is one. And that's why this particular field of human-centric security or behavioral security is so very important, that if you have not paid attention to that one vulnerable spot, one employee, or one that missed opportunity or misjudgment, all the effort, all the money, and all the resources invested for last how many ever years is going to be wasteful. And that is the reason why there is so much emphasis on this particular field. Well, so that concludes my thoughts on this particular topic. With that, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you.